What we do as prosecutors, we are storytellers, we are teachers, we're trainers and we're advocates, right? So naturally, right, that is how I lean in, because for all that time I've been sitting here listening to people's stories, however wonderful or however traumatic they are. That's what it is. And as they're telling their story, I'm watching, they're moving, right? So I know, what that invokes in me as a prosecutor. Like, I've been there millions of times where a victim has come in and I'm literally crying before they're crying while they're telling the story of what happened to them. It didn't even happen to me. But because of the way that they told it and I can see it happening in real time, the emotion that it evokes is so powerful.
Welcome to the Osumaré Learning Podcast, where genius is celebrated, joy is the catalyst, and we learn most deeply by teaching what lights us up. I'm Parchelle Osumaré, executive learning producer, curriculum designer, and former high school math teacher, and lover of all things wisdom.
And I'm Portia Michele Osumaré, client experience designer, business coach, joy strategist, and a lifelong learner of the sacred and the strategic. Together, we're excavating wisdom from our brightest and most brilliant friends and partners, gaining insight that transform how we learn and how we teach in today's world.
So join us as we offer insights, community wisdom, and unique perspectives on experiential learning. So welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Osumaré Learning Podcast. My name is Portia Michele Osumaré.
Hey there, Parchelle Osumaré. Welcome in, everybody.
How are we doing this week, Parchelle?
This week feels good, it feels full, and it feels busy. As you both know, I'm in the middle of a transition and a move to a new space that I'm very excited about. So, yep,
I love that for you, Parchelle.
Thank you so much. I get a beautiful view every morning of the mountain. So
it's exciting.
I'm very, 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 very grateful for that. How about you, my love?
When I tell you my tired is tired, this retrograde is kicking your girl in the teeth. But as most retrogrades, I am feeling so full of ideas, really revisiting a lot of the ways that I've been thinking about things and some of my business structures. This has been such a transition forward year. I feel like every time somebody asks me how I'm doing, I'm like, I'm in the hallway between one thing and another. But yet here I am again in the hallway between one thing and another. This has been like a year of that, but I'm good. I'm just like tired from running back and forth between hallways.
There are multiple hallways, apparently.
It's like a house, like a very large house. Hallways. And I'm trying to get to the rooms, and I'm only ever finding the hallway.
You're like, oh, it's another hallway.
Oh, another hallway. I made it. It's a hallway. What did Tisha Campbell say? The journey. It's giving.
Wow.
It's giving. It's giving. I'm going to show you this video of that because I know you don't even know the reference I'm talking about, and you are going to die laughing because that's exactly what she did on national television. We'll be with it. We love you, Tisha.
Tisha tells us she just basically is like, live out loud. Like, live as if nobody is watching. Just like live your life.
It gives a Leo season, right? I don't know if she got Leo placements, but she's the personification of living very loud, out and loud and proud. Very expressive. Very expressive. We love it.
Very expressive. Well, yeah. I'm excited.
Well, that's what's going on with me.
That's it? Okay.
Truly. That's what's going on with me. I'm excited about this conversation today. I know with so much going on in the summer and so much going on in the world, I feel like we have been having this podcast without having this podcast for like 6 months now. So I'm so excited to finally be having this podcast, to have this conversation to share with y'all, because this is such a hot topic of the times, as we should say.
I would definitely say so. Definitely say so. Yeah. Excited you all. Kerrie Muhammad is in the building. We are going to introduce her formally. First, let's get to know Kerrie. For real. Like, let's have some fun. We have some fun hot seat questions we'll ask first, and then we'll lead right into the formal bio so people know who you are and who's in the room. And excited to see where our conversation leads us today.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, Kerrie. So we have a series of rapid fire questions here. They're going to start very light, And then slowly but surely increase the heat slightly to get to know you for real. This is getting to know you behind the getting to know you. You have full consent. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to answer. But my request is if you do answer, say the first thing that comes on your mind, and we'll get to know you a little bit more that way. Are you game?
Surely.
Okay, we're starting off slow. Easy peasy. If I had to ask you to choose desert sunsets or beach sunsets.
I would go with the beach sunset, but I would make sure that I wasn't sitting on a blanket because of the sand flies, or the sand fleas, I should say.
Yep.
Okay.
I want to be sitting in a chair watching that.
Is this
That's real.
a southern thing that the fleas are in the sand?
When I would go to the Caribbean, I would not see that. But in the US, I definitely see that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what are these things? So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have never experienced a sand flea.
Oh yeah. It's serious.
Okay. Good to know. This is like how I felt about the first time I went to Florida and there were so many trees and I was like, I want to touch the tree. And people were like, ma'am, ticks. We don't touch the trees. I was like, oh, the West Coast girl, I have no idea what real nature is like.
Yeah. Yeah. Sand
fleas. Okay. Taking it somewhere nice and light, right? Up slightly. What do you feel like is the most magical thing that kids do around you?
I can only speak for my own kids because I have them all the time. But the most magical thing that they do is no matter where they are in the house or what they're doing, they will find a way to make it onto the screen when I'm on the line live. So if you see them, it could happen. They've been instructed, but they have a compulsion that when I'm talking to someone or some people live, and I tell them, don't bother me because I'm live, that's when they have to tell me something, or that's when it's an emergency, or, you know, they have to knock and you can hear it on the mic. Yeah. So that is amazing. That is an amazing gift that they have.
What I hear you saying is that you are raising such incredibly intuitive, brilliant children. That they know when their presence is being pulled on, even if the pull on is please don't come in here, and they just are magnetized. Magnetism children is what I heard you say.
Yeah, they have a gift.
Oh, that's hilarious. So many people, I'm sure, who are listening to this podcast, kids share that exact same the generational thing of mom works at home. So I'm not necessarily all the way sure what that is. I love it. Okay, turning up the heat slightly here. You are at a drive-thru that you know you're not supposed to be at. What is the drive-thru and what food are you ordering? And or like a fast food chain, because I also realize some people don't have drive-thrus.
So it's either going to be Chipotle or Panda Express. And it's going to be some kind of salad at Chipotle. And then Panda, it's going to be the lo mein half rice with probably the chicken and string beans and some spring rolls.
Okay. I mean, as far as like naughty drive-through conversations, you did great. I guess it's not that bad. Like you could do this like once a month and I would not say mad at a salad. Why are we mad at a salad?
I mean, you know, but that is it though. Like that is a weakness. Chipotle or Panda. I can't lie.
Again, it tells us a lot about you, Kerrie, that these are your weaknesses. We love to see it. Okay. Hot, a little bit even hotter than the previous. We only got two more in this spot. If I was to look under the passenger seat of your car, what would I find?
A water bottle that my children have let roll under from their seat, or a crayon or pencil.
That makes sense. That's safe. Again, tells me a lot about you, Kerrie. Should tell y'all a lot about the person that we're about to be having a conversation with. Last question, the thing that has been dividing the Black community for years upon end, and we ask that you take a stand if you can take a stand. If I was to bring up the topic of your grits, salt or sugar, tell me your stance.
Honestly, I can say that I probably would do sugar because it's more kind of like an akin to a cornmeal porridge that I used to have growing up, you know, since my family's Caribbean. So I think I would go with the sweet over the savory.
That is the right answer, also, just so that you know. Fantastic job. Thank you for letting us get to know you in that way, Kerrie. Greatly appreciate that. Now, again, as soon as we grab Parchelle from wherever they decided to be, they will read your bio and we will get on started from there. But yes, I would consider that to be the right answer. Parchelle, interestingly enough, does salt and sugar on their grits. And I was like, I mean, it's diplomatic, but I'm actually not mad. And now that Parchelle's the grit maker in our household. So if anybody's making grits, for the most part, it's Parchelle. And now that I've had the salt and sugar grits, I'm like, oh, this actually is preferred. And it's not quite like savory. It's still sweet because, when you put salt with sugar, it just makes things a little bit sweeter. But there's something about the grits that I think lend themselves well to both.
Yeah, I
The
would agree.
future of grits is together.
I would agree.
Not really a cheese grit person though. Like the people who do the salt and pepper, I'm like, like if it's shrimp and grits, I can get behind shrimp and grits. I can get behind, sauteed delicious shrimp on any grain. I'm not mad at what the grain is. And if it's grits, I'm not mad at it. But like just salt, pepper, and butter, I'm like, what are we doing here?
I honestly, you asked me that question, it was off the cuff, but I don't really think that I've actually ever really had grits. So I've seen people eat them, and so I'm likening it to like a cornmeal porridge that I used to eat when I was younger, but I really don't know. That's why when you asked me, I was like, I think it's this way.
How long have you been living in the Atlanta?
I can't. I'm sorry, but I did. I gave you a good, stab at it though, right? See,
That's hilarious. Well, Parchelle, it's your turn, so you can do your turn. Then if you need to pop
Okay,
again,
great.
you can. It is now time for the bio.
Okay, great. All right, y'all. So let's get to know Kerrie from her bio. So excited to introduce you all to her. As a former New York prosecutor with nearly 20 years in legal experience, Kerrie mastered the art of interviewing by questioning witnesses, victims, and experts to build compelling criminal cases. And while serving on the DA's office hiring committee, she noticed that even highly qualified candidates struggle to effectively communicate their value during interviews. And this inspired her to create Command the Interview, where she now helps clients craft compelling professional narratives. And with her dual perspective on both coach and recruiter, Kerrie brings the insider's view on what hiring managers truly seek. So today I'm excited. We're going to dive into the psychology behind successful interviews and learn some actionable techniques that will help us present ourselves, not just in job interviews, y'all, but life. Like that's something I will also say with Kerrie is I've learned so much about, presenting myself and positioning myself for new opportunities with what she shared. So very excited. We're here to learn from you today, Kerrie. Welcome to the podcast officially.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this opportunity and so thankful to you both for even thinking of me to be in your space and sharing your airspace. So the kudos is all to you all and the thanks is to you both.
We're honored to be with you, Kerrie. Kerrie has been one of my favorite folks that have come into my life in the past couple of years. To Parchelle's point, I've learned so much about narrative and story. And one of the reasons that I really, really love Kerrie, y'all, and again, this is going to be another one. I know I say this almost every time. Go get your notebooks. Go get your pens now. I don't want to hear it that you didn't go get it to write it down. Pause the podcast. So you're going to want to write some things down because so often, Kerrie, when I am with you, it's gem after gem of just things that I'm like, I hadn't necessarily put it together in that way in my head. And I think you are such a brilliant storyteller in your ability to be able to also craft from that end. So thanks for allowing our community to get to learn from you today. I so appreciate you being here.
Again, listen, this is like a conversation for me. Like this is not like even like, this is like fun right now. Like I'm excited to like talk to you both about this. This is great. I can't wait.
Good. Well, we're always excited to talk to you, Kerrie. And so, like Parchelle said, which I also somehow didn't put two and two together, that like, we went from prosecutor to the DA hiring. That makes so much sense to me as like the pathway. But give me, in your words, a little bit about your background and how interviewing became the thing that you're so passionate about.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. So my pathway is pretty nonlinear, right? So, firstly, one thing that hugely defines me, and I say it all the time, is that I am a child of two immigrants. And that is a huge defining factor, right? Because you're dealing with people that are learning to navigate an entirely new country from a young age, and then they're here and building. And both of my parents are entrepreneurs. And so from the very beginning, that was kind of instilled in me, unbeknownst to me, right? So when I got to college and, I was a person that was like, you know what? I'm going to be like a business owner. Like, I don't exactly know what that means, but that's what I want to do. And so I took on a major of economics with a business concentration. And over time, as I learned about what the pathways were for someone that wanted to, be in business, I said, okay, listen, I can't go back to school for another few years and get an MBA. Let me focus my attention elsewhere. And I started to read these true crime novels, and they were written from the perspective of a detective. And it just drew me into wanting to be this advocate. Because on the one hand, my mom was in the service, even though she was an entrepreneur, she's serving the public. And so I wanted to do the same thing, but I knew it had to be in a vein where I could dive in and really immerse myself into somebody's pain and struggle. And so I decided to become a prosecutor. And when I did that for, wow, like almost 20 years. And it was like the best 20 years of professional life that I could actually have, because I'm meeting people day in and day out and listening to their pain, but on the other end, offering help, right? And so it's one thing to take in and internalize pain and then just leave it there and it sits there and it eats away at you. But when you can actually offer resources and you can offer words and you can offer guidance and knowledge and how the process or the criminal justice system works to allay fears and concerns of people, there really is a no greater feeling than, other law enforcement professionals or people in that vein, or doctors and surgeons. Like, we're just in people's pain, and helping them come out of that pain is really a gift to be able to do that on a daily basis. So I did that. And then while I was doing that, I was asked to become a member of the hiring committee, and I was, screening stage, right? And so what I would see is, law students of all races, of all ages, from all stages of life. And what I started to notice was that they were super qualified on paper, but they had a hard time articulating their greatness. And so I was like, you know what, there's a gap here. But I don't really, I think I need to delve into fixing this, right? But I didn't really think of anything until COVID happened. And when COVID happened, it shifted my priorities, and my family became that thing that I was like, okay, I have young children now. Life is fleeting. How can I now serve them? And so in my quest to turn my life around and in turn turn their lives around, I had to figure out a way to, do that. And the only way to do that would be to leave my profession, retire from it, and try to do something to branch out on my own. And how do you do that? Well, you have to lean into the skills that you've already been honing all this time, which is interviewing and really being compassionate and being an advocate. So I turned that into, well, this is where I see a gap. I feel like I can fill this gap. And I feel like I have a unique skill set to be able to instruct and train people on how to be their authentic selves. Because as you said before, Parchelle, when you're in front of a jury and you have to talk about your pain as a witness, the prosecutor is there to help to guide you through how to talk about that pain, not to tell you what to say, but to give you that comfort and that level of confidence to be able to state it with truth and with power, and not be afraid of what we call the cross-examination or the fire that you're going to get on the other end. So when I came out on my own, I got an opportunity to be able to be a recruiter for a really small boutique financial firm. And in that process, I was like, wow, these two things work hand in hand. Like my interview skills in pulling information, but also my interview skills in discerning, right? Personality, characteristic traits, even sometimes work ethic. So here we are, from student that wanted to be an entrepreneur to then student that decided to serve, now to person that is actually living out the initial seed that was planted from a youth.
It's so interesting, Kerrie, and also makes so much sense as to why I always find that you bring such a breadth to this conversation. One of the things that Kerrie and I have in common, in my previous life, I did a lot of interviewing as a store manager of coffee chain for like 15 years. And I mean, it's like hundreds and hundreds of interview after interview after interview. And when Kerrie and I would talk about the interview process, I'm like, I didn't think about that. Like, it's a completely different lane when you're considering that you've seen it from the inside of also what compelling story and the ability to be able to articulate your reality does to be able to move a group of people. And if that's not the root necessity of getting a job at an interview, I don't know what is. And so I think that that's so interesting, Kerrie, that is your lane. And what I, as somebody who has gotten the pleasure of diving into your body of work, I know that story and the articulation of a person's skill set is something that you're so passionate about. Tell us a little bit about why that part of the interview process ended up being your sweet spot.
What we do as prosecutors, we are storytellers, we are teachers, we're trainers, and we're advocates, right? So naturally, right, that is how I lean in, because for all that time I've been sitting here listening to people's stories, however wonderful or however traumatic they are, that's what it is. And as they're telling their story, I'm watching. their movie, right? So I know, what that invokes in me as a prosecutor. Like, I've been there millions of times where a victim has come in and I'm literally crying before they're crying while they're telling the story of what happened to them. It didn't even happen to me. But because of the way that they told it and I can see it happening in real time, the emotion that it evokes is so powerful. So that's why I lean into the storytelling aspect of it, because I've been listening to these stories, traumatic of course, but for all that time, and trying to weave in, okay, let's turn that into power. Right? Like, it happened to you and I can't change that it happened to you, but how do we get you justice? How do we get you a feeling of not maybe super closure, because closure doesn't happen from a court case, right? But how do we start you on the pathway of healing,
And so with that kind of transition, how does story start to play when we're talking about, somebody interviewing for a job, right? So like, we're coming into this conversation, taking some of this background into the new reality of like, you're sitting in front of a person and you're interviewing, asking them to trust you with a job. How does that story start to play out in that space? How have you seen it play out?
Well, you said it just perfectly, right? Trust, right? And so we know that people, deal with people whom they like and whom they trust, right? And you can't gain trust from an arm's length, right? You have to gain trust by allowing some level of transparency. And in that level of transparency, there's the emotion that it's evoking, right? Because I'm allowing you in. It doesn't have to be a super personal story, but just allowing you to watch my inner thoughts and what I've gone through, right? It will hit you as the listener in a certain way. It's again, I have to make parallels, right? It's the same way that people will sit on a jury that never wanted to serve in the first place, right? They tried all the ways to not do it, right? But then they get in there and they are now invested. Why are they invested? Because now they've heard, the judge's instruction about how this is so important. And then they've heard the prosecutor's opening. They've heard the defense's opening. And then they start to see the witnesses come in front of them and tell them their stories. And then there's evidence that goes with it, whether it's a photograph, whether it's a document, and all of these things draw in the emotion, and they then start to feel and trust and build rapport even without having a conversation with the person. So it is about the feeling that you give to the person that's on the receiving end of your message. And that's in life, right? Not just an interview. That's in me talking to you for the very first time to say, hey, maybe we can work together. Well, how do you know if you vibe with me? Well, it's how I make you feel.
They're so interesting, and it's such an interesting parallel that's so, I think, counterintuitive to the way that most people are taught to interview. Most people are taught, like, interview is an information share. And so I should only share the information that is either pertinent to a certain skill set or maybe has me look a certain way. I think so few people think about the fact that this person is hiring you because they either are going to put you in a company that you be around people that they actually like on a regular basis, or you're going to be around them every day on a regular basis. So much of the communication has to inform the person about what it is that you do and maybe some information about your qualification, but it also has to build trust and rapport with the person to see that they would actually want the experience of being around you. That's profound, Kerrie. And I don't know that I have necessarily thought about it in that context. That makes so much sense. So if we stay here for a second, what is it that you're seeing from the recruiter standpoint that people don't really understand about how to articulate their story? Like, tell me what it's like in the wild. Are people really good at this? Are they not so good at this? What do you see from that end?
I think that people believe, right, that they have submitted a resume and that it speaks for itself. That this piece of paper is going to give you the full, picture and measure of who I am. And so a lot of times what happens is, the resume will be tight, right? And then you meet the person and it just is short, right? Because you didn't realize, especially the younger generation, right? Because they've been significantly impacted by COVID. Right?
Yeah.
They're in a period of time where they're either having gone through college or gone through some aspect of college or high school where they had no interpersonal relationship that wasn't on a screen or even asynchronous. So they didn't have that opportunity to be able to practice this. And so they feel that, oh, you're reading it, Like, why are you even really asking me, not just young people, but people in general? Well, it's right there. It's in black and white. Like, isn't that better than me having to explain it? I've already put it out there on the page. And so that's where it's missed, right? Because now when you have a situation where literally thousands of people can apply for one role, right? In a given, week, right? That you open a role, the paper, I see paper all day. You know what I mean? What I want to see is the human that represents what they've said on the paper.
That's a very good point. And I think with our current reality, I know we can consistently have conversations about, like, Lord, the timing of what's happening right now. We've got so many people entering a job market from so many different fractured places, right? We've got folks who've been randomly laid off, it was unexpected, that are needing to get rehired, and some of them are in the same industry and some of them are not in the same industry. We've got students coming into the workforce that didn't have a lot of these interpersonal kind of conversations and skills, and we've got, middle management being obliterated across corporations across the board. So HR directors are overwhelmed. There are thousands of applications. God forbid the AI helping out with the resume pulling. There's so much to contend with in the job market space. So one of the things that I'm hearing you say is that, like, your ability to be able to articulate story kind of is one of the ways that you stand out from the crowd. Like, and it seems to me also, Kerrie, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, like, your ability to articulate story in person and face to face, is one thing, but it sounds like there may be even some ability to articulate your story through the resume. Tell me, what are some of the ways that people articulate their story on resumes that actually make the resume come off the desk and seem exciting to people who are doing recruiting work?
So for me personally, I can speak for myself. When I see a resume, and I'm looking at it and I'm in the top portion of it, right? Like a little bit underneath the name and, where they go to school and all of that. Just the top third, basically, of their resume. And they're already hitting me with, like, this is what I can do. And I know that that's great because you need that. That's part of the job requirements that you have for your job description. And I've actually taken classes in this vein. I've done some extracurricular in this vein. I've even done some volunteer work in this vein, or anything that shows me that it's relevant to the skill set, whether it's interpersonal or technical, that I need for that particular role. I'm excited. I'm like, I can actually go through and be like, oh, I'll stop right here. Okay, you're getting called in for an interview. Like, that's how quickly you can make a difference on that top 1/3 of your resume.
The Osumaré Learning Podcast is brought to you by two sponsors that are near and dear to our hearts, because we built them. First up, Business Cousins. Business Cousins is a collective of called to serve leaders who are building businesses that create impact that actually matters. We're about doing real good in the world, giving people the results they paid for, and having a damn good time doing it. If you're into running a business that you actually love, hanging out with smart and soulful folks while you do it, and being supported every step of the way, this may be the room for you. We host gatherings, workshops, and offer ongoing business development support that's as human as it is helpful. If you're interested, apply today at thebusinesscousin.com. Check us out at www.thebusinesscousin.com. And then there's the Author's Leverage. That's our studio for turning your body of work into powerful learning tools. Whether it's digital workbooks, private podcasts, or binge-worthy education content that helps you scale your impact without burning out, we specialize in transforming complex ideas into accessible, engaging learning experiences that your audience will actually use and implement. Our team of expert creators, instructional designers, and production specialists ensure that your wisdom reaches more people in the ways that truly resonate. If you're an expert, author, thought leader, sitting on brilliance, let us help you package it. Learn more at theauthorsleverage.com. That is theauthorsleverage.com. I love this. Okay, well, since we're here and we're having a resume conversation, what are the things that are, like, huge red flags of, like, not ready, or I'm not calling that person back, or even, that would have a person almost unqualify themselves before starting?
The kitchen sink resume, right? Where you just basically list everything that you've ever done in life, and there is no real connection to what it is that you're looking to do now, right? So people have to just look at their resume, just like their LinkedIn profile, as a forward-facing, client-facing, employer-facing marketing tool. And when you look at it, that it is not for you to remember and for you to, know all the things that you've done, but it's for you to display and demonstrate to somebody else that is looking at it why We need you on this team because you can help solve a problem, or, be a fit where we need, or we're missing a link and you are that link. That's what the resume is supposed to do. It's supposed to tell the story of why I fit, why I bring value. And when you have that resume that is just everything that you've done in your life and there's no rhyme or reason to it, it's not a red flag, but it's like, I don't see the connection. Like, you have to make it plain for the reader, right? Just like a book, right? You can't expect the reader to know from the outset what your book is about. You have to give them an introduction, right? You have to give them a table of contents to lead them through the content. That is what the resume is. Lead them through your content.
Well, I love this. This makes so much sense to me also, because it feels a little bit also like, I think what I remember being taught, and what, as a person who did a lot of interviewing, what most people I think are taught is like, throw everything you've ever done at it so that they can see that you've done lots and lots of things, right? And then you get into this thing of like, oh, well, this is no longer relevant. Is that relevant? XYZ. I can hear you even saying that what there is really to do is look at the job description. Look at what people are saying that they need. And then look at like you said, the soft skills that may be underneath being successful at the thing that they need or the outcomes that they do. And then craft your resume to show how well you would be able to show up to that. That's what I'm hearing you say. And then it sounds to me like when we get into the conversation of the interview, it then to me takes it to that next level of kind of like, make sure that that congruency that you're attempting to articulate in the resume shows up with you in the interview, and that congruency makes you show how you're a great fit for the company with some of the things that you've done and maybe some of the things that you've not. So considering, if we're thinking about a lot of those people who are in so much of transition, what are some tips that you have for folks who may be coming from a lens where they've maybe been doing something for 15 or 20 years and then they get laid off from it, and now they're looking to, reapply for this job, and maybe it's in a different industry, or it's maybe not the same exact job, but something that's kind of adjacent, and they're unsure what to put either on a resume, what to even mention in an interview, because their experience may not match the exact requirement of the job? What would you suggest that people do with their story to help articulate that in a way that sheds a favorable light on their experience?
So, I've been taught that, your knowledge of a thing is what influences your perception, right? So if you're a person that has been, just re-entering the workforce after doing something one way for all this time, right, under one title, you may believe that you don't have the qualifications or the skill set required now because we're 15 years advanced and those titles may not be exactly transferable. But to qualify yourself, we qualify ourselves with information. And how do we get the information? We research it. So the first step is to learn what is it that first of all, learn about yourself, right? Know exactly what it is that you bring to the table. What are the hard and the soft skills that you bring to the table? And if you're seeking a position that doesn't sound the same, you got to look into that position and look at positions like that and say, well, there are commonalities, because I've actually done this, this exercise with Parchelle, right? As we're creating together the content for the product that we're creating, right? This workbook, right? We're going in and saying, well, that's not something that I don't know how to do. I totally know how to do that, right? It just sounds different. It just names something different. So my first tip is to really research, understand what you're actually walking into. And then when you understand through the research, what you can do is you can start to see patterns, right? And you can start to see language patterns and keyword patterns and skill patterns, right? And then now that shell of maybe what was the lack of confidence or maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome starts to break away, because now you're more informed. And you understand what the industry is looking for, what this type of role requires, and that you actually have those things, and now you have to demonstrate them. And that's where the interview and the resume comes into the crafting of the language that you use on paper, and then in person or on an interview, a virtual interview. But everything has to match and everything has to be relevant. Everything has to be in line and in alignment with what the reader and the listener is looking for. So that's really the theme. Research to know what it is that you need to understand, that you need to articulate on paper and in verbal communication, and then apply that. So I don't think that anyone, right, needs to be discouraged by transitional skills or transferable skills or pivoting, right? Because it's there. You just have to find another way to talk about it, right? Because at the end of the day, I can train you in a technical skill. I can tell you hey, take this course and you can learn how to use Excel. But I can't train you to be a good manager of time or be organized or be compassionate.
Okay. So since we're right here, Kerrie, I'm going to ask and put you a bit in the hot seat in there. I'm interested in what are the soft skills, particularly I think for my young people that may or may not, because, and again, you know, we love all of our young people. We were young people at some point in our own lives as well. And I do think that being so internet focused, being so online focused, being so phone focused, it's one directional. And it can be difficult to know how you ping pong in the peopling when you're not doing a lot of it outside of people who are in your friends and family, particularly in professional settings. I know young people always have struggled with that since the dawn of time. I think it's even louder, even now more, that we're doing more of that computering thing. Tell me, Kerrie, what are some of the soft skills that you think most people should share that they're great at if they are good at them? Like what are the ones that we recruiters want to hear that you're good at?
For sure. Communication, obviously, right? Because whether it's internal or external communication, that's how you do business, right? It's through communication, whether written or verbal. The fact that you can collaborate, right? Work in a team structure, that's also huge because, again, people aren't on an island. They're not siloed. They work in teams, right? Are you a person that can give and take feedback respectfully and, you know, improve when you're given feedback? How do you take that feedback? Are you a person that's organized and can manage your time? Because gone are the days where you're going to be given a deadline to do one thing at a time, right? So can you manage your time? Can you be organized? Can you prioritize deadlines, right? And then another ode to communication. In your ability to figure out how to prioritize, right? How are you communicating to those above you or to those, you know, peers that you have, that you are actually doing what you're supposed to be doing and, you know, moving along in the process? Or, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for this. Is there a deadline that I need to meet first so that I can focus here first and then, you know, follow up on those other things at a later date? So communication, honestly, to me is like huge. Like that is like, it is that thing that I see that people are not able to really drive home as consistently as the other things, right? They can do so many great things, but they can't communicate that they can do those so many great things.
Glad you done said a word. You done said a word. And so if there is something to strengthen, if you're going into a workforce and you're pivoting, or even you're entering into the workforce, strengthen your communication and strengthen your ability to be able to communicate about what it is that you're great at. What do you feel like, Kerrie, if I'm someone who is coming into the workforce, maybe even, or honestly kind of anyone, what are the things that I need to know about how to craft how to communicate my skill sets? What are some things that I need to know about that process that I should start getting good at when it comes to, you know, entering the interviewing space?
So one of the things that you have to get good at is research, because research is preparation. What I find is that there are a lot of people, doesn't matter the age, right? As we talked about before with respect to the resume, they believe that everything that they've done is easily known, right? So they don't prepare for the interview, which is like that last thing that you got to jump over before you actually get the job. This is where they're just like, oh no, I've done everything else up to this point. I've gotten great grades. I've been in the right, you know, extracurricular activities. I've joined the right boards. You know what I'm saying? You see my results on my resume. I don't really need to like sell myself as I step through over the threshold now. And that's it right there. It's preparation, right? And then because we have to communicate verbally who we are and what we bring to the table, it's practicing that verbal communication, right? So first you got to research the industry, the role, and then you got to research yourself. Like once I know what the role is looking for, how do I meet this? Like, what have I done in my past? Like, I'm not saying that the kitchen sink resume isn't a great thing to have. It is, to the extent that it's that thing that's constantly being updated, because that's where you're going to pull from, right, to create your recipe for this particular position, right? Because every ingredient is not going to be necessary to be successful in every role. So let me look at my list, my master list, and pick and choose what goes and what's pertinent to showing that I have the skills and qualifications to be able to handle this job role and do it well. So research, knowing the industry and the role, researching yourself, and then practicing speaking about yourself. That's really my formula for how I teach people how to really get over this hurdle. Because what we talked about before, the interview is that block. Like, it's that thing that stops people in their tracks. And it's so unfortunate.
You just said a word with that. I hope y'all was writing this down. Like I told y'all to get y'all paper and pen because you was going to want it. here we are. I done told you, you was going to want it. This is why. It's so interesting, Kerrie, that you said this. And again, this is why I love this conversation so much, because I also think that the new generation, some of us as young folks that have had a very, I want to call it internet-y, because you can tell I'm not clearly a techie person, but has had a very online life from a very early age. We forget that some of these soft skills, these peopling skills, these communication skills are the way that companies consent. This is a consent conversation. I wanted you to sit in front of me, and as a person who has had to hire for my own team on a regular basis, I always think through the people who were an instant yes to me, whether they were quote unquote qualified or not. It was, could I see them working in my group? Did I think that they would have the willingness and the capacity to learn if they needed to learn something? And did I have the confidence that I could be able to trust them? And all of that allowed me to consent to wanting to give them an opportunity to make sure money ended up in their pocket, and them to consent to trusting me to create a work environment that was going to be conducive for both of us. But if they didn't represent themselves fully, it's difficult for me to see whether you're not going to be a fit or not. So sometimes I can also hear in what you're saying, Kerrie, that being a little plug and play, being a little general, being non-authentic, not taking the time to research yourself, puts you at a bit of a deficit when you go to try and present an opportunity to another company or just in general in life.
Yeah. I mean, you just said it all. That right there, bottle that, what Portia just said, and sell that all day. There's nothing.
And it's so funny because I even think about, and Parchelle, I'd love to hear you weigh in on this particular portion. I feel like this is also all marketing. Like, this is what every entrepreneur has to end up sitting and contending with. It's like, what do I know about myself and how I share it so that people know that I'm the person that they want to work with? It's the same thing in your interviewing in any capacity.
It's sales and marketing. Right? Sometimes it's easier actually for, maybe, I don't know, I'm not saying this, I'm just going to use Parchelle as an example, but say Parchelle is a master salesperson, right? Which they are, right? Say they're a master salesperson, but they're a master salesperson at selling what it is, the product and service that they offer, right? Well, because they offer a product and service, part and parcel of what they're selling is also themselves and the experience of working with themselves. So you're selling, so just like what you all talk about all the time, right? Portia is a client experience expert, right? That is what an interview is too, right? It is a experience. Like, they're actually your client. You're trying to sell them on yourself, the employer. You're trying to sell them on yourself and say, hey, listen, look at how it would be like to work with me. Like, look at what I bring to the table. Look at my communication skills. Look at how I prioritize and how I collaborate with teams. You want me on your team. Like, this is sales. It's sales, but it's just so hard because it's you. It's not a product that you're creating with another team member or a team. It's outside of you when you're selling a product. But when you're selling a service, like a service-based business like yourself as well, Portia, you're selling you along with the service. They have to buy into both. And that's what the interview is too. You're buying into my skill set, be it technical or soft skills, but you're also buying into me as a person and how I make you feel that you can trust me.
Oh, you done said a word. And I hope, again, particularly for people who are looking to master this skill set, right? You're entering the job market. This is what there is to do and to note. And I think that there's nothing wrong. Sales doesn't have to be sleazy. I think that this is also the opportunity for you to see what companies or the person in front of you is working with. They get to see what you're working with, and you all get to consent to one another. And the opportunity to do that is going to require that you show up fully, they show up fully, but you look at it like, hey, this is your introduction into my ability to be able to solve your problem. Because I also think that there's not one person in the world who is looking for a job, who is searching for someone to fill a job that doesn't have a problem to solve. And we're all looking for, can you solve the problem? And am I going to enjoy the experience of you while you do it? Truthfully. And so I think there's something, Kerrie, I could continue to talk to you all day long about this, because I do think that this is something that every one of us has to get great at, whether you have your own business, whether you are interviewing in other businesses, whether you're entering the job market, whether you're pivoting in the job market, because this is also the ability to always open up new doors of opportunity for yourself. Always. If you are somewhere that you don't want to be, this skill set actually is the key to give you access to being somewhere else. And if you don't have it, you can get yourself stuck for a long time in places that you don't want to be, just because we didn't strengthen this one skill set. And I'm going to just say it because Kerrie didn't say it, but I'm going to say it. And some of us need to get a coach, like a Kerrie. Like, you may need to come sit with Kerrie and talk about how you get better at this, because some of us, it may not necessarily have been, our skill set. I know that Parchelle has gotten the opportunity to kind of receive from Kerrie as the same way that, you've had the opportunity to be able to support some of the learning assets. Parchelle, anything that you want to name about kind of your journey of navigating this on with Kerrie for yourself?
This is so interesting because I think of all of the projects that I worked on with different clients. Never before have I been able to anticipate how the person will respond to your questions, Portia. So this is great because I'm so ingrained, and I'm like, yep, that's what I would have said too, because that's what I learned from Kerrie herself. I mean, to be honest with you, I think there was a period of time where, Kerrie and I were looking at some opportunities for me and looking up, just seeing what's possible. And I remember going through that process with her. And every time I do this around resumes and like looking in those areas for myself, I always walk away with like, I feel like I now know how to communicate myself better. Like I'm like just the process of updating your resume and updating, how you would show up in an interview has really for me helped to solidify, the other areas that this sort of communication shows up. So I feel like my communication has upgraded. And I think that's like one of the biggest elements, just to lean back into that aspect. The communication part is everything. And so I have been able to take some, a good amount of what I've learned in that process, right, to bring into other conversations that actually landed with me talking to people on, on a specific team, and just be able to communicate and get to know people. I definitely feel like that is a key thing. And the other aspect that I wanted to lean into and mention around Kerrie's work is like when we, in us working together, it was really important that what we put together was very practical. So the fact that what comes about as a result of working with Kerrie is like a collection of your stories. To me, that's like the beauty, right? You have these go-to aspects or different stories about yourself that you bring to any solution that you just always use. And I find myself just in that conversation telling those stories almost every day. I'm networking all the time. Let's say if somebody says, well, tell me about yourself. Great. Well, I'm a so-and-so that like, I've got these stories on lock. And so that's also like a huge benefit of what I've learned and been able to co-create with Kerrie is like a practical way of collecting your own stories that you can practice and come to any conversation with outside of a job interview to, I feel like what we're doing is enrolling people into a vision, right? And that vision might be that I'm on your team. So I'm here to enroll you in that, through the stories that I tell. So that's my 2 cents. And I'm forever a student and always learning something great. So this is,
It's wonderful because, as I'm, doing research for this project and, building my business, I come across, great speakers. And, Brian Tracy is quoted as saying that, communication will account for 85% of your success in both business and life. Right. And so it is the truth, right? Because it is that thing. Right. And so even in just working with both of you, right, the level of communication that we have to create, client experiences and create actual, learning assets, right? There's a level of like back and forth, but it's so respectful, right? And the feedback is like, sometimes I'm like, wow, that's like brilliant. Like how I get excited to implement it because like when you communicate effectively and respectfully, it just transcends everything and it makes that other person just like it almost unlocks their own like creativity and their ability to even soar higher. So like when you do this for yourself, when you do this kind of introspective work for yourself, just like Parchelle said, where you see it show up is going to be like everywhere, right? And where you see people's reaction to the way that you communicate shows up is going to be like, wow, that is a direct, benefit from my leveling up all of my communication skills. So Parchelle is so right that it deals in every avenue, every aspect of life. And I'm sure it even in your own interpersonal relationships with your partners, with your family, with your friends, everything. So it's so huge, right? Because that is the impression that you leave on the person, how you make them feel. And how do you make them feel negatively or positively is through your communication, whether it's verbal or in the action that you take.
I done said a word. We're going to drop the mic there because I feel like I need another 2 hours because now I'm trying to get into like, well, what happens if you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert? Well, what happens are the do's and don'ts? I want to know all the things, but that just means you're gonna have to come back, Kerrie. You're gonna have to come back. We're gonna have to do it again because y'all, we can't give you too much at one time. We know your attention span. You tell us, and we appreciate that. We deeply appreciate that, y'all. So Kerrie, I know that at the end of listening to this, some people are gonna be like, okay, that's great, and who's helping me with this? Where do I start with that? So Kerrie, please let the people know where they can find you and find kind of ways to work with you if they desire your support on their interview process.
So you will all be excited to know that through my work with Parchelle and Portia, I have been able to basically put all of my teachings and trainings that I would try to pour into these personal sessions. I've put it in kind of like what we call like a hug in a mug, basically, right? It's a learning asset that you can sit with, that you can self-reflect, that you can, write powerfully about yourself, holding some tea, watching me if you need to, or not watching me. But it's that moment for you to pour in all of your accomplishments, all of your achievements, everything that you may have felt was not something that you could talk about out loud. And when you pour it in there and you see it reflecting back at you, then you're like, well, I'm going to start practicing talking about those things. And that's where I come in, right? So with this learning asset where you get all the training, then you come to me at commandtheinterview.com, or you find me on LinkedIn and you say, hey, Kerrie, listen, I would really love to spar with you, basically, have some real time feedback, human coached feedback on my skills, because I really think that I've developed them by working in this workbook. So you find me there, and you will, I think, love the experience that, Portia and Parchelle have helped to create in learning about yourself and in learning what you need to be able to communicate to people so that they understand who you are and the value that you can bring in any arena, not just in a workspace, but in any arena.
And y'all, look, I done already told you, I am a sculptor. But if you don't bring me brilliance, ain't nothing I can sculpt. When you bring me brilliance, we can do a lot of things. Like you heard Kerrie say, visit Kerrie at commandtheinterview.com. Look out for the Command the Interview workbook experience so you can do this on your own. And you may need to get some one-on-one coaching with Kerrie. You can know where to find it. I highly suggest that folks, particularly those of you all who are actively looking to redirect a new area of life, get good at this skill set. Listen to some of the things that were said, reflect on what this is for you, figure out whether or not you need some support there, or in general, figure out what your skill set is here. Assess yourself and see if this is something that you can grow. This communication skill is something we all continue to need and continue to develop, but sometimes it's a good reminder to check in on it. How are you being received around you? And think about, is my ability to communicate my value in story something that I need to grow so that I can have a different result of the things that are around me, depending on what you got going on. I want you to take some time and think about that. Thank you so much, Kerrie and Parchelle, for joining us today on the Osumaré Learning Podcast. I hope that you got as much as I got out of this podcast. Kerrie, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to getting to see you another time. Come back for us.
Anytime, and thank you both. Anytime I get to hang out with the two of you is a plus in my book. So I'm here whenever you need me.
Well, samesies. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to the Osumaré Learning Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and consider what was shared today. Thanks to our guests for sharing. Thank you to Parchelle for holding us in this container. And thank you for listening. We hope that something that was shared today sparks a new idea, inspires a new action, or creates something that you're excited to share with your community.
And thanks to Portia for leading this wonderful conversation and for bringing the vibe. Make sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and hit us up on LinkedIn or Instagram. We want to hear what this sparks for you. So do us a favor, drop a review or leave a comment with what you thought.
All right, friends. We will see you next time on the Osumaré Learning Podcast. I'm already looking forward to it.
Me too.